Hello, everyone, and to all of you who are far more important than people realize, happy Father's Day. We are doing a Father's Day episode because we have a bunch of fathers here, and the one guy with his cap backwards who is clueless about what the real world means. We would like to say thank you to everyone. Father's Day has always been a big deal for us at the C organization, and we've always, pretty much always had kids involved in whatever we do. If you notice what we do, it's very child friendly. We always do things to bring them along, and we like that. And we want to bring everyone along with us. So today we are going to be talking about some of our experiences as fathers, as drivers, as motorcycle and motoring enthusiasts. So join us. Tell us what you know. Tell us what you want to know. Paulo, we're
Yeah,
going to start with a guy who does not have kids yet, but has pets.
That he knows
Paulo.
of, at
yeah.
least.
Oh,
Oh,
please, Chris. Start off in the gutter, thank you.
No, never know, never know.
Don't
anyway,
encourage him.
anyway, when it comes to cars, cars provide a lot of interactions and memories with your own dads, with your grandparents, with your own children, or even as father figures. So a lot of us, most people go through driving school, but going through driving school, you might have experienced driving with your dad, whether it's with a manual or with an automatic, whether it was an owner type Jeep or an old Camaro FX. We have our own memories starting off when we were teenagers. So this episode is dedicated to the Father's Day special, and the C team will talk about their own experiences, maybe as fathers or their own experiences with their own dads or father figures, and how it has made an impact to the way they drive now. So
Oh,
maybe we can start with Nick's.
Oh, with me. Interesting because I both learned from my dad and through a driving school. I went through both processes. Yeah, I went through both processes, and I actually started with a golf cart. Interestingly enough, when I would drive my dad to the golf range,
Inside your
so
village.
I mean, it was inside the village, so I guess there's a level of safeness, but in terms of like the rules and what to do, I learned it all there. So even before stepping into driving school, like when you're in the intersection, look left, look right, then look to the left again, then proceed, all those rules. Learned it from the golf cart.
that's good.
So you're
And
talking
then
about
Especially since you're
the
learning it
basic
in a very slow vehicle, right?
the
yeah,
basic
and
rules.
like I think what really helped, because comparing like me to my like brothers and sisters, I was the only one who drove the golf cart. And I think also because of that, it's I learned all the that needed to be learned in driving through little segments. Unlike,
That's a
for
good
example,
point.
you throw someone in the manual transmission right away. The problem is he has to learn the fundamentals and how to drive a manual. Like they're just it's information overload. But as for me, it was never an information overload, thankfully. So when I learned how to drive, by the time I stepped into the manual, I already knew the fundamentals from my dad. So when I was in driving school, all I had to do was learn how to drive manual, and then it was smooth sailing from there, or so it seemed.
That's interesting.
So what
I
did you
just taught
learn?
my daughter the no, I just taught my daughter the basics of how to start a car in a manual. She's
Oh,
using a
that's a
Miata,
big
right?
help.
I know it
Yeah,
really
but that's
is.
a big
Lumiyata.
help.
Yeah. So she's using the turbocharged Miata as the first car to try. But what the heck?
That that's a cool
No, no,
first car to learn.
but what I liked was that anything that she had an issue with, she automatically went to the brake. And she asked good questions. So there. And my son as well. But my son, because of the Miata was in the office at the time, he ended up starting with the automatic. But they do start with the less powerful cars. So
No, but it's nice that you're teaching your daughter in segments. So like it's like
yeah,
you're teaching them one topic at a time,
yes,
which is
actually, that's
pretty
all we did one
awesome.
time was just I want you to learn how to make timpla, the clutch, and the
Yeah, there
gas.
those kinds of
That's
stuff.
it.
Yeah.
And I could see that when I was driving, she was doing the foot movements. So it's good. It's a good thing. So next, before driving school, it was just the golf cart,
Yeah,
or did you
I
actually
was
do something
I was
else?
as no as early as 10 years old because I was playing
Yeah,
golf when I was 10 years old, and like first my dad would tell me like observe like how I drive. So like kind of, I guess like your daughter, like she's observing how you drive and then mimicking.
yeah,
So I'd observe how, like
Yeah.
my dad how he drove and
The
yeah,
mimic him.
observation when you were younger was very key, I think. For me, watching the pedals, how they work, whether it was a manual or automatic, I was also very observant when it comes to how you work the steering wheel. So even as simple as turning right or left, like how do you turn the wheel back to
Yeah,
a straight
right. Like when you have to
line?
turn like a
Yeah.
when you have to turn the one the hand over
Hmm.
that maneuver.
Hmm.
I was a kid. I was like, huh? It's like sorcery. What's this?
yeah.
Yeah.
What's
'Cause
this?
I remember when I was in driving school, the instructor was trying to teach me how to work the steering wheel. Then I thought in my mind, kasi it was always automatic that you return the steering wheel to a straight position. Yun pala, maybe for other people, it's not like it's something they have to learn. So
Yeah, yeah.
that was very like important for me.
How about you, Chris?
Uh,
Like, what was your
yeah.
like learning first learning driving experience?
I actually wasn't taught by my dad the first time that I learned how to drive. I was taught by my grandfather. One time when I was visiting him in the province, he just suddenly decided, you're 15, you need to know how to drive. And I was like, okay.
15.
So, yeah,
15.
yeah, I was 15. So he took me out to the field in his 1960s Land Rover Defender.
Wow.
Um,
Ganun.
it was old. There was no aircon. It was bouncy as hell.
Did you have
It
to
was
use two
like
feet on the clutch?
and it was the gearing was the opposite of what it's supposed to be. So
That's
first
right.
gear would be to the right. I think it's because it had an engine swap because I don't know. It's an old it was an
or
old
someone
beat up Defender. Yeah,
or
so
someone was too
first
lazy to reverse the transmission.
I don't know how it turned out that way, but
That's
that's where I
probably
learned. But
true.
what's nice is that since we were in the province, we had all the space, and I didn't have to worry about hitting anything.
Yeah.
I could mess around and make mistakes, and it would be okay. So there's the fact that there wasn't a lot of pressure attached to my first time behind the wheel or first time learning a manual. I think that was a big thing
Oh, definitely a big help. I bet.
Yeah,
because it's kind of
I
scary when you're here.
yes.
Like especially if you have no idea what you're doing, just finding the balance between the clutch and the gas for the first time. That's tricky.
It's very
I mean, I
very tricky.
can't even count how many times I've stalled the car when I was starting the
Even up to this day, like
during the day.
Actually,
Thankful,
it's.
yeah.
I think you're right about I learned in a big field as well, so that was fun for one thing. But also the ability to make mistakes. You're right. If you do it in like on the streets, there's all this other stuff.
oh yeah.
But
That
no,
would have
no,
been a big help for
you're
me because like that was my
yeah,
disadvantage because like right away all the dangers were present, all the other
yeah.
cars,
That's
all the
true.
people, and an angry
Yeah,
dad.
not a lot of people have access to an abandoned road, or some of them have to
Yeah,
practice in like their subdivision with their other cars parked on the sidewalk or parked on
That's
the
me.
side with
That's
people
me.
yeah,
people walking on the street.
yeah.
Yeah.
I first learned inside the village and a cemetery.
Oh,
Oh,
That's
that's a
very
good
okay.
important. Yeah.
location. Okay, I'm gonna keep that
Yeah.
in mind now.
No, no, they don't allow it anymore.
Yeah.
We all get caught so much doing that.
Ah,
That
really?
generation is done.
No, like
Yeah, they're now very aware.
you enter the gate, diba? We're going to visit our dead grandfather, and then when out of
No, they
sight na.
watch. There are
Yeah,
signs. There are
I
signs there
think
that say no
the
practice
guards have
driving.
figured it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have
How
a
about you,
question. I have a
Francis? Oh,
question
sorry.
Yeah.
for the dads. I have a question for the dads out here.
Ayun. Okay.
What lessons about driving would you share or pass down to your children? I'm talking about Carl, Francis, and in the future, far future, Maynard and Chris.
I think the most important thing that my dad ever told me about driving, which really stuck to me, and I'm proud to say that I've gotten into just a handful of accidents that were my fault. I mean, I've been driving for a while, and I'm proud to say that I've only been in like 3 accidents that were my fault. And it's because what he told me was drive like everyone's an idiot.
Yeah,
Drive like
pretty much.
everyone around you is an idiot, and they have no idea what they're doing. And that's like the key of that's like the ultimate mantra
It's
of
defensive
defensive driving, right? Yeah.
driving. Yeah,
Like
we should have a
if
shirt
you're always
like
thinking,
drive
oh
like
man,
everyone's
this guy's gonna brake check me, like or something like that, like oh this guy's gonna just suddenly stop. That means subconsciously you're already giving yourself space for that to happen, right? So
yeah.
with a mentality like that, you're ingraining defensive driving with
Erring on
your
the side of caution.
with
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
driving habits. Yeah.
You know,
So
one of the
even
best things.
yeah.
Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
No, I mean even when it comes to things like parking, when you park
Mm.
in a slot, I'm already assuming the guy's gonna bang into my car when he opens his door, like the car beside me, stuff like that. Like I just assume everyone is an
That's
idiot.
why we like park. That's why we like parking near the pillars, Chris. No,
True.
me and Chris.
Yeah.
Every time we're out on a shoot, we always look for the like two factors
Yeah.
near the guard gate and closest to the pillar. Not even
Yep,
close to the
yep.
mall
So then you bump
entrance.
each other.
So you only expose one side of the car when you park.
Yeah, but that's not
Yeah.
always a guarantee. I mean,
Yeah.
even if
Yeah,
you're
that's not
parked
always a
next to a pillar,
guarantee.
if some idiot, improperly parks next to you, he or she
Yeah.
could hit you. Happened to me
Yeah.
Yeah.
already. I always go for that pillar spot. But when some
Idiot.
careless idiot or girl or boy
Whoa, whoa,
improperly
whoa.
parks next to you, then
Yeah,
happened
like
to me.
wala.
So
You
there.
just at least like change it from 100% to 50%.
Yeah, but aside from imparting to your child the fundamentals, the proper things to do, how really when it comes to driving, I guess one of the things you also have to like ingrain in his or her mind is the mindset. Most
Oh,
importantly,
very
to
important.
be patient. It's hard. I know it's hard. We all get that. I mean, we all have our boiling points, but it's important to always not to lose your cool on the road,
Es- Especially on the
diba?
road. Actually,
Especially
that's
on the
one thing
road.
I wish my dad taught me.
Yeah, diba? It's
Like
something hard, I know.
fundamentals. No, even driving schools don't teach that. And what happens is we mimic the people that drive for us. And the scary part is, like speaking for my dad, he's come from a generation where uh, cars weren't as many on the road. So when years came by, and then there's this thing called heavy traffic, all that stuff, and tempers were getting high. Like I used to emulate that. I should also be angry at heavy traffic, without really knowing why I was getting angry at heavy traffic. When the truth is,
That's very true.
all you have to do is wait. It's like no
Yeah,
one's going
that's
to get
very
there any
true.
faster. So I agree with Francis. Because here, more than teaching like how to drive a manual car, I think the mindset's the most
Yeah,
important.
because it's a
No,
different
no.
thing now when you're driving in the streets of
Yes.
Manila. It's very different. Unlike before. Unlike before, I remember we could easily go to Antipolo to have a few beers and then go back. You live in Parañaque, you go to Antipolo. I mean, it was very easy to travel back then. But now it's a different thing, diba? I mean, with the traffic and everything.
Yeah, and actually more now motorcycles. More for
Yeah, yeah,
motorcycles.
yeah.
Actually with Maynard, now that you're here on the show, like what was your learning process on riding a motorcycle, and how is it different like from us learning like, how to drive a car? I'm sure it's way different.
Well, for me, it's quite easy because I started learning how to ride on two wheels with a bicycle, and the shift to a 50cc scooter is much easier than I think I learned how to drive a motorcycle before I learned how to drive a car.
Ah,
But yeah, I learned quite early. I think I started riding a bicycle at when I was 7 or 8 years old.
a wee little Maynard. I wonder how that looked like.
Then I got my first scooter when I was in high school.
Oh, high school! Wow.
That's how hardcore Maynard is.
Yeah. Wow, dude. Like even before cars. Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
now that you're a dad, and I'm sure will you allow your kid to ride? Will you allow your kid to ride
Can
like
you
when
hear
they
me?
I
grow
don't know if
up?
I don't know if the screen has frozen or if Maynard has frozen.
May- No, I'm curious because like my dad, like he used to ride my dad used to ride motorcycles, but because of that,
Yes,
he
even
didn't allow
before I
us
had
to
my
ride.
driver's.
I think Maynard's lagging a bit.
Yeah, I think Maynard's lagging.
One of the things about motorcycles is
I'm
that
still thinking about it, but
No, oh no
um,
no no,
you
he's
really
still
did
no
freeze.
Took a
yeah
long
No,
no
he is
time.
lagging.
yeah
Yeah.
no but I wanna get that I wanna like pry into that like topic a little bit. See even he's thinking about because he knows the dangers. And as a father, you don't want your child to be placed on those dangers. This is really interesting. It's like don't do what I do. It's like huh? What's hard to listen?
yeah, I'm still thinking about it.
Well, for
Still
me,
thinking
when I
about
learned,
it.
my parents were completely against motorcycling, but I took courses and they were still against them. But motorcycling actually made me a better driver because it made me realize how much more fragile everything is, how many dead spots there are that we take for granted in a car that would kill us on a motorcycle.
Yeah,
So I would pay
that's right.
attention to traction, I would pay attention to road surfaces, all this stuff. Motorcycles, learning how to properly ride motorcycles, both in terms of safety and in terms of speed, made me a better car driver.
Okay.
Also, it makes you realize that, like I say, with parking, what you guys you're talking about, dude, think about that with a motorcycle or a small car like a Miata, where if you park beside a big car, someone's just gonna drive into the spot thinking you're not there,
Yeah, I've seen that happen
and
once
it
in my life.
happens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen that happen once in my life. So funny. But okay, Maynard, question. With motorcycle driving at your time versus now, it's way different because of all the traffic and people. What lesson would you what if parang if you were to teach someone, what lesson would you pass down that's like new?
I think it will be assumed that everybody can see you. So always anticipate the movement of all the drivers around you. I think the most important mindset when you go out on the street is to your situational awareness should be 100%. So I'm not a big fan of intercoms and music. So I can hear everything around me, what's happening around me,
Yeah, yeah.
and assume that everybody can see you. I think that's the
Yeah.
most important.
So when you were in high school that wasn't much of an issue or was it also still an issue?
There was far less motorcycle riders when I started riding my scooter, but right now I'm more afraid of my fellow motorcycle riders than with cars
Whoa.
because
Okay,
the
that's
riders right now are there are very many riders right now who lacks training,
Yes.
and there are a lot of reckless riders now than I think 20 years ago.
interesting. Interesting.
Follow-up question when it comes to like learning how to drive. What are the pros and cons of the father teaching and learning from a driving school? What would you
I
guys
think
do?
I think you can do both. Why not both? That I
No,
mean,
like I guess if you had to pick one, like I guess what are the pros and cons of
Oh,
like both?
if you had to
Oh,
pick
I'll
one,
pwede
put it
pala.
this way. George Ramirez and I were talking about doing exactly this. Prior to the pandemic, we were going to get a space and teach the kids that needed to learn how to drive. But our agreement was, okay, I'll teach your family and you teach mine. So we negate the issue, right?
The
Then when the pandemic
family
came,
issue.
yeah, the it might be too much tension, might be too much
Yeah,
anger, whatever expectation. Then the pandemic came, and so that went out the window. So I said, okay, I was thinking, okay, what are the negatives that as parents we would bring, and that would be a lot. So I basically just reset my mind to whatever happens, happens. The example of how often the car stalls, right? I'm like, I just turned around and said, okay, the car's gonna stall. Don't let it scare you. It's gonna happen. Okay, it's fine. I at one point I was deciding, okay, what's the least expensive manual car I can buy to teach someone how to drive? And then I realized,
Sentra.
you know what? If my Miata is gonna give its transmission life to someone, it may as well be the teaching my kids, right? So I'm like, I made that
Poor-
decision. Like,
And
you
then
may
Miata's
as
like,
well.
what?
No, really, but that
And
was
also-
my decision point. So
Begs the question
Oh.
if teaching manual is still even worth it anymore.
Well,
But that's a
that's
topic
the-
for another.
Yeah.
well,
For another
no,
day.
I think everyone should learn that. But the problem is, I had to come to a screeching halt the other day because a bicycle, not motorcycle, went in front of me, and I had to slam on the brakes hard. And that's, you know, you could have killed someone at that point. I could have killed that biker, which means that, yeah, we should have people in better cars. Miata does not have ABS brakes. We should put them in cars with ABS brakes.
But yeah, that's a really interesting question. Like, should we like teach manual
I think we
driving?
should.
Especially now. You think you
I think we should, and also I think that it's a positive thing. It's a skill that you learn and it makes you feel better. So I did things like, okay, roll up, even if it's not a manual. I taught my son how to, okay, we're going to teach you how to hang on a hill, and yeah, so he's comfortable with that.
Isn't that like the usual last
That's
test?
one of the hardest.
was-
yeah, that's the
That was
hardest.
my worst
Yeah,
nightmare.
that's
That
the
is-
remember.
It's like, where are we going? Where are we going, Dad? To the steepest part of the
part.
village.
Yeah, we did that, but it also gives you a better level of confidence. So basically, what I said was, whatever happens, I'm dealing with it. Don't get angry. Don't get whatever.
There's always the handbrake to save the car.
But
Yes.
is it now a requirement for the LTO for new drivers to graduate from driving school? Is it a requirement? I don't know.
No.
Okay.
No?
No. Here's the thing. It's a little confusing because I just went to an LTO guy to ask this, and what they explained is, right now, you can't get a learner's permit without going through a driving school
Driving
first.
school. So okay.
Okay.
Oh, that's
and this
good
was
to
different
know.
different from a
that's
year
good to
ago. Okay. A year ago,
Okay.
prior to the pandemic, I was going to get my son his driver's permit, and they said we can give it, but technically he's not allowed to come here because he's not 18 yet, so we cannot process it. By the time he was able to go, they said, the law just changed. He now has to go through.
No, wasn't the law like
Uh,
17? Like you
No,
can
no,
get
it wasn't.
this-
It wasn't. No. That wasn't the problem. The problem was the quarantine. Legally, he's not supposed to be
right.
out. So
Yeah,
if he's a
okay,
17-year-old,
yeah.
he's not even
Okay,
supposed
yeah.
to be in the office.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, that's
That
what
was
I
the
remember.
problem.
Mhm.
Now it's not the
No.
age issue. The issue is, before you get a permit, you're supposed to go and take classes.
Oh, that's a
classroom
school.
classroom classes before you get a learner's permit.
So are there driving schools that are like affiliated or
Accredited.
Yes, there are.
Accredited.
The best thing to do is, honestly, check it at the LDO, because
Yeah.
it seems to be a constantly
Yeah.
changing thing. The problem is that they're not online. They're not online classes.
What?
That's the thing. The entire country is going online classes, but your driving permit, and it's all technical, right? It's not driving.
Yeah,
it's just,
like
that's not
Yeah,
online.
The exam
Plus-
thing.
So we're
Because I
gonna have a
remember
year
before-
of no new drivers.
yeah, because I remember before, like you don't have to learn how to drive in the driving school, nor learn how to drive manual. Like when they test you, you can bring your own
Yeah.
car actually.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what I
why
remember.
it wasn't required before. Yeah.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
No, well, I'll put it this way. In all honesty, this country could use better driver training.
Oh, for sure. Like
So
Yeah.
like imagine if they
There was this.
like
There was this.
pointed
The before, diba, to integrate driver's education into the school curriculum before, right? Diba?
I
Just let it
learned.
push
I
through,
got
diba?
my first license in the U.S. In school.
School.
that would be cool. That would be cool.
Yeah, diba? To integrated driver's ed.
Yeah,
in,
but by the
preschool.
time that happened, my father had already brought me out to the field, the parade ground, and I learned there. My grandfather taught me how to bicycle. My father taught me how to drive, and he actually told me to go faster because he's like, why are you going so slow? He's like, because I don't want to die. He's like, you'll be fine. So go there. And he would say like turn the wheel hard so I could feel what was going on. So I think we got to remember that type of thing.
So are we looking at gone are the days that we can learn from our dads? Diba? Like I mean, like given that you have to come through like a driving school. Because I
No,
think
like
there's a pro and con from learning from your father or father figure in this case.
Well, yeah, I think it's yeah, but it's also if we're the one teaching, it's our responsibility to handle that.
In hopes to teach the right thing. Yeah, that's the that's
Yeah,
the danger also from like one source versus something institutionalized.
yeah,
well,
but it go
I
ahead,
mean,
Chris.
an obvious pro, of course, is it's nice to learn from somebody you're familiar with, somebody who hopefully doesn't judge you for mistakes or won't be too hard on you, and somebody that you can learn at your own pace with.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a pro. A con, like what I mentioned earlier, is that you won't have access to a space where you're actually supposed to be driving. I mean, technically, if you're not supposed to learn on public roads,
Yeah,
um,
technically.
so a driving school will provide that. I mean,
Yeah.
there are
Yeah, the
schools that have
basic,
their
the
own
basic.
courses, right? They have their own courses, which is the ideal scenario where you want to be if you're going to learn, because there you can do uphills and it's fine. They have the signs and stops and starts and all of that. There's no pressure because they have their own courses. So ideally for me, the best scenario would be you learn from both. So you learn the basics from your dad or grandfather or whoever you have at home. Um, and then you refine what you've learned at a driving school.
Oh, yeah,
It's
I
like
agree with
taking an
that.
MBA from your father.
That's
You go through the
that's
basic driving, that's
exactly
the college, then you go through MBA by your father, you teach your ed. Like teach your
that's
kids something
exactly
that the drivers driving school didn't teach you. Like the basic,
Oh,
like what Cookie always tells us about don't
Yep.
grab the steering wheel inside, keep your thumbs out.
Yeah,
yeah,
I
thumbs
think
yeah,
out.
some driving school don't teach that anymore.
yeah.
I don't know. Diba?
Actually, that's what we can
That's
do, and that's
true.
what that's what we've tried to do is bring kids who are about to start driving to the racetrack and say, okay, don't freak out if your car does this because you can handle it. You know,
Yeah, that would be nice. You're putting him in that environment
yeah,
where
or just
to show the
maybe not with
car.
ABS brakes, but before, we would teach people that okay, if your brakes lock up, deal with it. Don't scream, freak out, and whatever.
Even the first gear clutch thing, just to show that like it's not the end of the car's life if you
Yeah, yeah,
fumble on the clutch. Even as much as that.
yeah. Or the grinding of the gears, right? Which are going, oh, it's gonna
Yeah.
happen.
So Francis, you would rather the father figure, the father, teach after the driving school or before?
I think it would be better to teach them after. It saves you some of the stress, the tension and stuff. At least you know the
That's
basics
what,
already. Diba? And
yeah.
it's not your car that they're grinding the transmission with. Diba?
Ah,
At least when they get driving to my car, they won't grind the transmission so much.
what car would
Diba?
you teach
And
them in, Francis?
um,
Driving school. No, not touching the Civic.
now I think the automatic would be uh, recommended for to make it easier. I think with an automatic transmission, I think
Yeah,
that would be
I agree.
for starters.
I'm for
For
that.
starters.
And then
Manual.
like once, no, for me it's good to start with automatic, and then once they're familiar with the fundamentals of driving, then you
Yeah,
can put
yeah,
them on
yeah.
the
Then you can put them
on
No,
on
the.
they'll never go to a manual if you've taught them the automatic. They're never gonna do
That's
it.
like teaching them how
yeah.
to run before walk. Eh?
You know,
Yeah, if
I
if
have
you want to teach, I mean, I'm not saying that you need to teach them on manual, but if you're going to, it's kind of the first way. Then they'll also appreciate the automatic, right? But they
Because
still have the
I found
feel.
it easier to teach someone to drive a manual like after they knew the fundamentals of driving compared to the
Really,
other way around.
That's
Yeah.
what happened to me.
really.
I learned automatic with my dad, and then I only learned manual through the driving school.
Yeah.
So
I think
I already had the fundamentals of like the rules and how to turn, how to use your lights, how to use your mirrors. All I needed na lang was to drive a stick.
Yeah.
See,
I guess
Yeah.
I was already discussing heel and towing. So maybe okay, I see your point.
I guess it becomes less frustrating for the new driver to start learning from automatic because of
Yeah.
the with it has does install and everything. So it
Yeah.
becomes more fulfilling. Oh, I can do this. I can do this. That
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know
rather
what's
starting from a
interesting?
clutch. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sige, sige.
because by the time I took the driving school, I already knew everything. I already experienced driving on the road. It just took me like I think an hour to get used to a manual, and I felt comfortable already
Yeah.
because that's all I had to worry about.
That's
My
interesting. I
experience, it
never
took
would
me
have thought that.
days. It like for me, it took days to get used to it. Because I mean,
Okay,
But
like,
you
they'll
learn.
try
you guys
to
are
teach you
worrying me.
fundamentals. Hmm?
You guys are worrying me. Took you days to figure out. Okay, remember I
Yeah.
told you
No.
to try my
Hmm.
Miata? Don't. But you know what Paulo's saying? Den, who is listening in on our conversation, just said, and Den is from a family of
Racer.
drifters
Yeah.
or autocross
Racers.
people, right? And she
Mm.
said she failed learning a manual, then went to automatic, and never went back to a manual. Whereas Paulo said he started with the automatic, and then he was fine moving to a manual.
But there,
Well, I
like
guess if
that's the
you're
thing.
mechanically inclined, for guys, once
Yeah.
you start learning the manual,
I see no
it becomes
reason why
more
you would go
fulfilling.
back to manual, unless you're a race car driver or a drifter or like a drag racer. I see no
Yeah.
point on
Uh,
why
Yeah,
you would go back to manual. I
I'm with
mean,
Chris on this one. It's something I don't. I mean, I
I
believe it's something you
agree.
don't have to teach anymore.
I mean, the only reason I wanted to learn how to drive a manual because I'm into cars. But for my
Mm.
friends who learned how to drive, they saw no point, and they would even like give shade to like car guys who would say like, "Oh, you don't know how to drive stick.
oh yeah, the
It's
purists
2020."
there are gonna kill
Yeah,
me. But come on,
Yeah.
let's be
you
real.
don't.
Like
Yeah,
Yeah, guy.
no one has a '90s 911 turbo that they
yeah,
carve the canyon with. Come on. I
Or the
mean,
opportunity to
I
carve a
agree.
canyon with, right? Jeez,
I mean, if you got a car like that, fine. Like the manual is the way to go. But I mean, for your daily commute to the
No,
office and back, oh my
you know,
Yeah,
as
god.
for
simple.
daily commute, I agree. I agree for
Di
the
ba, as
daily
simple as
commute.
this? You wait for the mall to get filled up with cars. What are the chances you're surrounded by like a manual car? It's very low nowadays.
Yeah, but they'll be the cool guys. Sorry, sorry.
Guys,
I'm
we found him.
manuals. What can I say?
We
No,
found
no,
him,
but
Siguro
guys.
if you have a sporty car, that you use
yeah,
on Sundays, and
Yeah,
it's the
but
Yeah.
way to go.
but for the
But even
enjoyment
then,
of
like
the mechanical side of the car, eh. Like other than
you could
that,
have
other
a
than enjoyment, for like pure drive, like just pure going from point A to point B, I don't think you have to learn anymore.
you're not gonna enjoy manual in your nice sports car when you're stuck in 2 hours of traffic. I
Oh
just
man, don't.
you're not.
That's why
Oh
you use it only on the
god.
weekends,
Oh god.
or take it to the track.
Problem is the traffic's on the weekends.
Porsche dual
But
clutch
anyway,
transmissions.
yeah, we are digressing.
Yes, we are.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so thanks, Dad.
So that, so that's fundamentals. Fundamentals.
Okay, I think what we should teach the most is what Francis said, which is the attitude. The cars are not weapons. They're not invincible. They're not reasons to get angry. I think Nix was very, very correct about learning. Don't bring the anger that you might have seen on the road into the car with you.
Yeah,
You don't
I
have to have
know.
it. I personally would get really upset about not being somewhere on time or whatever. Then I realized, you know what? I'd rather be there alive than not be there late. And then that's just the way to go. That's just the way it is. So I think it's those attitudes that, and that's not just for cars. That's just for life. We should be teaching people that
Yeah,
anger is not the appropriate response most of the time. That your attitude out there is going to be what gets reflected back upon you, and your life will be better for it, whether it's in the car or anywhere. in your
Yeah, like
workplace, in your school.
what I tell people, anger never made anything better. Simple as that.
Yep.
And one more thing that I would like to impart to the next generation of drivers is that
Yes.
driving is a privilege. It's
Oh
not.
yeah,
It's not a right.
You also
That's
share the
true.
road with
that's true.
other fellow motorists as well,
It's a
diba?
privilege. It's a
It's
privilege that you earn.
and
Yes.
share
Yeah,
to
and
everyone on
Yes.
the road.
what Pocholo Rebels always used to say, your consideración. You give consideration to other motorists as well, diba? You share
Oh
the road
yeah.
with everyone else, diba? It's not
Mm-hmm.
just you, diba? So there.
Everyone has equal right to the road.
Yes. All right.
Oh, that's so
So,
deep.
well, that has been our Father's Day thing.
Woo!
That has been our little chat. Some of us are fathers, some of us are not yet. So, we hope you've enjoyed it. We all have our own opinions, and some of them are wrong, such as automatics, and some of them are right, such as manuals.
We found them, guys. We found the purist.
We're kidding. We're kidding. But the whole point is that, you know what? As much as we love the cars, it's not always about the cars.
Amen to that. Amen to
Yeah,
that.
So
I agree.
thank you very, very much. We forgot to introduce people, and we're going to do it now. We are here with Paulo, the non-father. We are here with Francis. We are here with Nix. We are here with Chris. Maynard was here. He has left the building and then is kind of floating around, listening to us and making comments. Thank you very, very much, everyone, for this episode of Cars Casually. Please have a good week. Stay safe, be kind. And as Francis reminded us, be considerate. Bye,
Happy
everyone.
Father's
Happy
Day,
Father's
Happy
Day.
everybody.
Father's Day.
Woo!